There is so much noise in the productivity world. Perfection is an illusion. We pride ourselves on how busy we can be, on how overloaded our to-do list is, and how exhausted we are. Do you really think that you're going to do your best work when you are physically depleted? You do not need to be constantly available. I will admit, I fell to it for so long. If what you've been doing so far was gonna work, it probably would have worked by now. How much more productive would you be if I gave you the key to a secret vault of truth? In today's episode, you are going to debunk the 9 productivity myths I wish I knew before I entered corporate so that you don't have to learn the lesson the hard way. You get to get it from me in just as little as the super quick episode, so let's dive in. Welcome to Resonance, the podcast for high performers and entrepreneurs who want to do life, work, and success differently. I am your host, Viktoria Levenberg, and I'm obsessed with efficiency, productivity, and planning in a way that harnesses your energy and your natural rhythms while keeping you in alignment and integrity. Because I have figured out that lasting success is not about the hustle. It is about being in resonance. Let's begin. There is so much noise in the productivity world, and I get it. It is basically set up mostly with the linear productivity model in mind. We've got all of this corporate culture and societal norms and the patriarchy and all the things. And so I have got a slight bit of a twist for you today. And so we'll see how it resonates because, here on Resonance, it is all about taking what aligns and gently leaving the rest. And so by the end of this episode, you will have debunked the most common productivity myths so that you can actually get your work done faster, easier, and more effectively. And these are lessons that it took me about 8 years to learn, and you're getting this in 30 minutes. So let's dive in. Myth number 1 is perfect equals better results. And I put this right at the top of the list because I was a sucker for this one. And let me tell you something, perfection is an illusion. To be honest, you might not want to hear this, and this is going quite deep, so I'll only touch on this lightly, but perfection is in fact a trauma response. All different kinds of procrastination, it is fear masking itself as perfection. It's those minor details trying to perfect every little bit that no one's even going to notice, or it maybe even holds you back from starting in the first place. And it is not true. Perfection does not equal better results. Instead, what I have learned in 8 years in the corporate space and over a decade in being a master in productivity, time management, organization, all the things, is that clarity comes from aligned action. Messy is good. It is actually fantastic. And perfection is unfortunately a form of procrastination. It is masking your fear, and it is also keeping you stuck from reaching your next level of greatness, exactly where those better results actually sit. So that's number 1. Perfection equals better results. Debunked. Okay, cool. I don't know if we're going to do this with every single one, but we'll see how annoyed you get of me. So I'll let my amazing VA who's going to edit this episode make that decision for you. Okay. So the second myth that we get to debunk is busy equals productive. Oh my God. This one makes me cringe so bad because we see this everywhere. And this isn't just in corporate culture. This is in overall societal hustle culture. We pride ourselves on how busy we can be, on how overloaded our to-do list is and how exhausted we are and how many meetings we've got overlapping. Oh, I'm triple booked. It's like this pride of honor, this pledge of allegiance to the hustle paradigm that is taking you straight to Burnoutville. And so what I have learned in my time is that it's not necessarily about ticking the boxes, even though it feels so damn good. Oh, as a finisher completer myself, I love ticking them boxes, so don't get me wrong, but it's not about ticking them boxes. It is about the quality of boxes that you tick. And I will be the first one to put my hand up and say that some of my most productive days have been where no box has been ticked whatsoever. And what I mean by that is that special, unique, creative flow state you get to tap into where you are making quantum progress that a to-do list wouldn't even be able to capture. And what I'm referring to here is your 5% activities. So when I speak about your 5% activities, I'm talking about your high impact, strategic tasks, goals, and think time as well. And so depending on what you do for work, if you run a business, if you're in corporate, if you're making strategic decisions around the house and your family's financial future, this is going to be really unique and individual to you. However, there are these things that are really hard to put into a box because they're just so broad and they're not linear. Like, this is why they don't fit into the traditional linear productivity model. They are non-linear in nature. Like, a example from my life is something that I'm doing here, like delivering this podcast to you is an example that falls under that umbrella. But in the entrepreneurship space, in order to deliver services to amazing people like yourself, we've got to work on things like messaging, because there's a difference between being the coach, expert, teacher, guide, etc., and the marketer and the salesperson. And they're two very distinctively different approaches that need to be taken. And I personally, even though, I am the efficiency, productivity, and organization queen, I could talk about that for days. I'm like, I've got all of those bases covered. When it comes to things like marketing, that is a muscle that I'm building. That's like somewhere where I'm a very beginner with the little baby weights, the pound, the 2-kilo dumbbells that like almost look embarrassing. And so it's such a broad topic, right? Like messaging. And there are specific things that I would do there. And even though it doesn't mean that I like ticked lots of boxes, if I just spent 4 hours working on my messaging and doing all the things that come underneath that, like, that is the most impactful, efficient, productive, highest ROI use of my time possible. So this is an example of where busy does not necessarily equal productive. I've got another example from you in real life. Again, this is like hot off the press. I went for a little walk with my partner and our 4-legged friend Piper, and she was running around and chasing the ball. And at the time of the recording of this episode, she will be turning 10 years old very soon. So happy birthday to Piper, cutest puppy in the history of the world. And we were chatting, and I was like chatting to him about my business, and he was telling me about some of the things going on in his world. And then all of a sudden he just had this like aha. And he had this massive breakthrough and change in perspective to a topic at work that was taking up a lot of his time and energy. And it was like this most creative solution that he was like, oh my God, I've been approaching this all wrong. And it solved the situation for him so much so that when like an hour later, he was telling me he like told his boss, and like his boss was just like, this is the greatest thing ever. I can't believe. And I was like, I was sharing back to Kat. I was like, I can't believe that. Well, I can, because this is what I teach, but it's just so cool to witness it in real time with people who aren't doing the work, but just absorb it by osmosis, by being in my world, living under the same roof. I was like, it is so cool that you had this download as you were out in the park in the sunshine with me and Piper. Like, this is literally what I'm saying, is that you would not have had this realization from just sitting and staring at a spreadsheet and hoping that, trying to think your way into this solution. So myth number 2, busy equals productive, debunked. All right, let's move on to myth number 3. And this one's probably more so for my corporate peeps, because it doesn't apply as significantly in entrepreneurship and kind of personal life, but it can. So I will speak to different examples just to help you see yourself and your unique circumstances in there. And this is that constant availability means you are a valuable team member and you are proving your worth and you are amazing. Oh my God, this is such conditioning. And I will admit, I fell to it for so long. I was the person who would reply to your email before you even press send to that email. I was like, always, I prided myself so much on like my quick response time. And I would, I had a boss once that had this habit of like, his focus block was 5 a.m. And I was like, I'll be the first one to reply to all his stuff. And like, even if I was at the gym, and I'd be like texting with him and call me after work and all those things. And then I was like, hang on a second. No. Like, you do not need to be constantly available. First of all, boundaries. Like, I'll link up an episode just below. I spoke about it just recently, a couple weeks ago, but I've also actually got another episode that I aired a while back about boundaries and how they are an energy leak and a form of self-care if done properly. So energy leak if done improperly, and a form of self-care if done properly, to clarify. And second of all, it's actually, you're less productive if you're constantly available, because as I've also spoken on the podcast before, and I'll link up this episode as well, you are more vulnerable to context switching, which reduces your productivity. It takes you out of flow state. It takes you longer to get the same thing done than if you just stayed focused and in your zone. So you've got to protect your time, and also like be kind to yourself with your time and the response time. So those of you who have ever emailed our customer support team or myself will see that we've got an out of office that says we'll get back to you within 7 business days. This is the same shared agreement that I put into all of my communities. We've got private community groups where my amazing students and members share their incredible wins and questions and come in for coaching, etc. And again, like one of our shared agreements is like, I will get back to you. I will acknowledge your post within 7 business days. And that is a boundary that I put in place for myself, because otherwise it would be constantly eating away at me, that I haven't replied to the thing or did the. It's like, no, I do not need to prove my self-worth by being constantly available, because no one expects it of me, unless you condition them to. So again, remember, conditioning. You get to set that for yourself. And it's the same thing at home with your family and your friends and messages. Like, I'm really deliberate with people when specifically it comes to, messages and calls and all those things. It's I'm not gonna, unless it's urgent and you're literally like, you locked yourself out and you need me to open the door for you, or it's something super time sensitive. It's like, I respond when I have the time and space to respond. I'm not going to interrupt everything in my life because then you're just like walking around trying to please everybody. And then we come back to boundaries and people pleasing, and that's a whole separate topic of itself. So myth number 3, constant availability means you are a valuable team member or you're proving your self-worth. Debunked. All right, let's move on to myth number 4. And I'm not going to talk too long about this one because I have done lots of episodes on this specific topic that will be linked up in the show notes below. But the myth that is so common and conditioned and we've been bamboozled into, especially in the corporate world, is that multitasking makes you more efficient. That is a lie. See my earlier point about context switching. You guys got to protect your headspace. Multitasking does not work. It's not a thing. It's a waste of time. It is exhausting. And frankly, it's actually quite disrespectful as well to whatever it is that you should be present to in the moment. And look, I also fall victim to it sometimes. That's the thing with conditioning, is we are all conditioned into it. And so we've just got to slowly, consciously uncondition yourself. But it is not effective. It does not make you more efficient. So multitasking is more efficient is not true. Myth debunked. let's move on to number 5, which is such a big one. And that is, we've been told more hours equals more work equals better. And then let me ask you something. Do you really think that you're going to do your best work when you are physically depleted? Like, really? Do you think that just more hours equals you're getting more done? Because if you still think that and you've been hanging out in my neck of the woods for quite some time, then I have not done my job properly, because the way that I approach and teach productivity is completely different. It is non-linear. It does not input equals output. It means input has an exponential impact on output based on being really strategic and curated with how you allocate those specific resources that, again, I teach inside my program. But, like, to help you see this a little bit more clearly, the more hours that you put in might actually be things like busy work that is just making you feel good because you are staying busy and you're doing things, but they're not actually getting you anywhere, like replying to emails or clearing out your downloads and cleaning up your desktop. Like, you're certainly not being more productive. You're doing more, but like, you're not really moving the needle on what actually matters, right? And the other thing, and I'm pretty sure I've spoken about this on the podcast as well, there's been studies done from Harvard Business Review and a lot of different analytics around people who are exhausted and sleep deprived and, sacrifice their well-being for the sake of working more hours are delivering work of poorer quality. So you've got the choice of either staying in the office for another 3 hours, looking at the spreadsheet for the 20 millionth time, having to look at it over and over again because it just all is mumbo jumbo and mixed up into one thing at this point because your brain isn't functioning. Or you can do the hard thing and step away, give yourself the replenishment that you need, knowing that when you come back refreshed, you are going to get so much more done, so much faster, so much better. But it's not about the hours, it's about the quality of hours that you put in and when you put them in, which again is a whole program. Like, that, it's true. I could go on for days about this. So the myth of more hours equals more work equals better, absolutely debunked. We can get rid of it. Let's move on to number 6. And I love this one. I just, at the time of the recording of this episode, I was just teaching on this as well. And I'll do my best to articulate it in a way that you can hear, because I'm conscious, this is a podcast. It's not like I've got my little slides and things that I can show you. So bear with me as I try to kind of paint a picture in your mind. So the myth that we've been told in the productivity space is that output can only be increased linearly by either putting in more time or more effort. And that's like the actual definition of productivity. I looked it up. I did a bit of research, in the dictionaries, and it was like, yeah, either more time or effort. And then I was like, oh, well, what do they mean by effort? And that just was horrendous and really sad, because effort basically means hard work, exertion, physical stress. And I was like, well, that sucks. Like, that's not cool. No wonder we're all struggling. And so this linear formula that thinks that to have more results, right, to have more output, you've either got to do more, so put more effort in, or you've got to work longer, so put more time in, is a lie. We've been fed a lie, everybody. It's all fake. Don't tell anyone. Okay, this is super secret, squirrel. But if you hang out with me and follow the non-linear formula that I'm about to share with you, you're going to become unstoppable. But don't tell them, okay? Because this is your super secret. Super secret. Shh. Okay. No one's listening. Okay. I can keep going. Okay. Sorry, I'm having some fun with you here. But I'm serious. Productivity is not linear. Let me and my students be your witnesses, be your proof in the pudding of the fact that it is exponential. And if you were to imagine, let's take a moment and go back to your 7-year-old self. Maybe not 7, maybe it was 10. When you were in school and you were learning maths. Who loved maths? Not me. Anyway, I'm sure whether it's PTSD or very happy memories, you can remember your math class. And you can probably remember the very first time you saw a graph and you had the y-axis and the x-axis. And then there's a little line, right? And there's like a little linear line that we get taught. So that is the linear productivity model of output is more time or effort. That's what it assumes. The more time, the more effort. Here is the thing. The non-linear productivity model, if we have your output on the y-axis and your time and effort on the x-axis, which by the way, we're going to reframe effort as resources, because effort signifies it's hard versus resources is what you're actually using, whether it's your physical, mental, emotional, energetic resources, whatever. This formula is non-linear, which means it's logarithmic. And I'm sure you've seen, if you've ever like looked at compounding interest or all those things, it's like, it's slow. And then all of a sudden, boom, it skyrockets. And that is because of two super secret squirrel things. One, not all time is created equal. You can become a time bender. And I will link up an episode just below this video where I dove into some of the time management hacks that they definitely don't teach you at school. And number two is when you learn how to become a master of your resources and steward them like the elite star player that you are, that curve exponentially skyrockets. Like you are limitless. You have endless potentialities available to you, and it becomes so much more enjoyable. So this is myth number 6, this linear formula of output needing more time and effort, debunked. Okay, how are we going? You're doing so good. You're 2/3 of the way there. I know maybe some of you are like having a couple of mind-blown emoji moments. You're like, oh my God, you are changing the way I look at everything. Maybe some of you are like, yeah, Vic, this is so obvious. Like, this is how I see the world. If so, that's awesome. Wherever you are is perfect. There is no such thing as behind. Just be here with me. We've got 3 more. I've got you. Okay. Number 7. And this one, I'm going to be honest, I'm still working on reframing as well, because it has just been so deeply ingrained and conditioned into me through family, through society, through how our world works. And once you understand that this is also a myth, and in fact, it's a belief, and it is a belief that is not serving you and that goes against everything that nature intended, your life will change. And that myth is that rest is lazy. If there's anything that the cycles of success have proven, is that rest is an essential part of the cycle, where actually there is a specific part, whether you are female, male, non-binary, whatever, like again, this applies to everyone. There is a specific time within your cycles of success where the most productive thing you can do is nothing. And I know that in our producing world where we are just measured on our how hard we work and how much we push and how much we exhaust ourselves, that is really hard to fathom. But it's not how we're meant to operate. That is why people burn out, because they don't honor this really essential phase of the cycle. That is why people never achieve the most peak, amazing, incredible abilities of their potentialities of the purpose that they came here to this world to fulfill, because they're too exhausted to even tap into the creative, limitless potential that lives deep down inside them. But it needs them to be in the fertile void, that little quiet space for just a moment for it to emerge. And if any of you have heard, maybe you've heard it on the podcast here, maybe you've heard me speak about it on the socials or somewhere else, of the ultradian rhythm. It is basically like your circadian rhythm equivalent, but it runs 24 hours of every day. And your body is wired in a cyclical nature, like in so many different ways. But this specific rhythm that I'm speaking about, this is applicable to all humans. We all have a slightly different way that it operates, but it literally, your energy peaks and troughs and peaks and troughs. And that rhythm resets roughly every 2 hours or so. It's anywhere between 90 to 2.5 hours. And the magic trick is that when you start to descend and reach the trough, what your body's actually signaling for is some quiet downtime, for some rest. But the problem is that because we've been so conditioned to just produce and push through the fatigue, that most people don't honor this trough. And so they then exhaust themselves even further. And even though the ultradian rhythm goes back into the rhythm, it doesn't reset fully in the way, because all of a sudden it's like a diminishing economy of scale. It's like a diminishing return, where the next peak isn't quite as high as the peak they had just before that. And it's just like this downhill spiral. Whereas when you honor and you work with the cycles of success, you honor things like the ultradian rhythm. This has been scientifically proven. It is, if you honor that little trough, you then actually get access to more of a peak. And it's sort of this like exponential, like I know it's like, it doesn't make any sense. This is why I say like, this is so non-linear, but it's like, actually, the more you rest, the more productive you become. It's wild. It's a phenomenon. I've seen it in my life. I've seen it show up for my students. It is beyond anything I could have ever fathomed or imagined when I first entered corporate. But here you go. The myth that rest is lazy is completely debunked, because it is not true. It in fact goes against everything that human beings, nature, and the universe are wired to operate into. Now, moving into our 8th myth. And this one might rub my type A high achievers the wrong way a little bit. So I'm gonna tread carefully here. But the myth is that willpower and discipline equals success. And it was one I prided myself for a long time on. And even now, to this day, I like get these comments of, "You're so disciplined." And I was like, yeah, cool. And I also see a lot of super disciplined people that are stuck in busy work and keeping their inbox at 0, and they're not productive. So willpower and discipline are not necessarily directly correlated to success. Of course, you do require a degree of willpower and discipline to follow through on the plans, etc., that you set up for yourself. But it's actually not the main ingredient. And like, especially willpower is a finite resource. My heart breaks for my initiator archetypes out there who are waiting to get motivated before they start that next project. It's like, cool, well, I will see you in your next lifetime, maybe, because you will probably be waiting forever. And it's not willpower, it's not discipline, it is not motivation. In fact, what sets the best apart from the mediocre is the small habits, systems, and structures that keep the momentum going, even when the willpower and discipline isn't necessarily there. So there you have it. Willpower and discipline do not necessarily equal success. Sometimes it simply is a matter of having a system that can do the hard work for you. Now that we've debunked this one, we get to round it out with our last myth. You're doing so good. I'm cheering you on for still being here. And that is that productivity habits work for everyone. Productivity hacks are a one-size-fits-all approach, and what works for me works for you. So let's all go to the same corporate workshop and follow what Steve Blogs told us, because it worked for him. So it's definitely going to work for every single one of us in the same exact fashion. Bull bleep. If there's one thing I learned, and this is like what I'm so grateful for the health and wellness and like the health coaching side of my journey for, is that I really got to honor the nature of bioindividuality and how we are truly so unique, to the fact that one man's food is another man's poison. And that works on food, that works on movement, it works on, all different types of things that you can imagine. And that also applies to productivity. Productivity is so incredibly personal. And so something that I really encourage my students to do and build out as we navigate and work through Efficiency Made Easy together is to make their operating system personal and unique to them. So yeah, of course, like my teachings are going to come with a degree of bias towards what I personally experienced in my life and etc. But like, I won't be honestly really humble when I'm like, this is just because it worked for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Like, here's what I know works and here's what's proven. And now let's massage it and adapt it in a way that's going to work for you, because you might process information differently. You might be a different personality type. You might have different needs and requirements. You might have different life circumstances. You might have different values, different priorities, different goals. So this is where the real magic comes in. And this is what I love so much about my community and sort of like some of the other things that we're doing behind the scenes, after Efficiency Made Easy, is that we really get into the nitty gritty and just like refine it and make it yours so that your system works for you. So that is my last and final productivity myth. And it is this illusion that we've been fed that productivity hacks work for everyone. Debunked. So I'm conscious I've just thrown a lot at you, and you might be a little bit confronted about this because as I advised before getting into it, a lot of this is going against the common 3D linear patriarchal model of the world. And good, that's exactly what I'm here to do, because I have tried long enough to fit into the linear productivity system that I then realized was designed to fail me from the get-go. Like, that is what ignited the spark in me bringing what I do and sharing what I do now with you here today. Because if what you've been doing so far was gonna work, it probably would have worked by now. And so take it from me. Take it from my students who've moved through Efficiency Made Easy or who are in our current cohort, or take it from the people that I'm sure you see just as much as I see day to day in my corporate job, grinding and pushing and running around like a headless chicken, still succumbing to these linear productivity lies and myths that we've been fed just to be even more exhausted and depleted. Like, you've got the proof is in the pudding. You've got the choice. You can follow the ineffective common methods, or you can join my elite crowd and do it differently. Do it more efficiently, more easefully, more calmly, more joyously, because that's what I'm about. We do things differently around here, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And so to summarize this week's episode, the 9 productivity myths I wish I knew before I entered corporate, dispelled for you are: number 1, you've got to be perfect to get better results. Number 2, staying busy means more productive. Number 3, being constantly available means you're a better team member, you're more valuable, you're proving your self-worth. Number 4, multitasking means you're more efficient. Number 5, more hours means more work, means better. Number 6, your output or your results are linearly correlated with the time and the effort you put in. Number 7, rest is lazy. Number 8, willpower and discipline equals success. And number 9, productivity hacks work for everyone. All of these things are myths. They are all incorrect. And I have just given you the proof in the pudding of why and how and the better way forward. So my invitation to you this week is to just pick one of these. Pick one and take action. For example, let's say you're the type of person who really struggles with perfectionism, as I did once. There was a chapter in my life where that was a real issue. Maybe you pick a project and you declare it complete before it is perfect. Despite any imperfections you can still see. Or maybe you start to play with the idea and dispelling the myth of rest equals lazy, and you schedule a break in the middle of your workday. Whew, how naughty does that feel? Like, good, green light. Maybe you are short of inspiration and you need a little bit of help. And if that is the case, just shoot me a DM. I would love to have a chat about this. I could nerd out about this for days. So there you have it. These are the 9 myths I wish I had dispelled before I entered corporate. And this took me almost a decade to learn. So hopefully you are not going to take quite as long to learn this. You got this in less than an hour. And I am here to help make this journey even easier for you, hey, if you're curious what it's like to work with me and you want to hear more about the amazing results that my students inside Efficiency Made Easy have had, just check out the link below this podcast episode. I would love to get you on the priority wait list. I would love to have a chat and just hear what's coming up for you. What are some of your struggles? What are some of your personal unique circumstances? Because that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help people. And I just know and stand for the fact that if we can all exhale and operate at our best in alignment with who we truly are, like our potential is limitless. Imagine the world that we are going to create when we all get to operate from this space. And this isn't like a dig at the corporate world either. This is just the culture that's been created through, decades and decades of conditioning. And that is like part of my mission as well, is to start to infiltrate that space and be like, hey guys, let's wake up everyone. We can do things differently around here. Okay. And I might be the trailblazer in this space. And by learning and starting to implement and play with some of these things, never, ever, ever underestimate the ripple effect that you're going to have on someone else's life. Like, I have this one friend who recently made some commitments to themselves, and they shared it with someone else in their workplace, and they also made a commitment to themselves around like leaving on time and not messaging late. And like, that is so cool. Just seeing that ripple effect and then how that then translates into how much more present you're going to be with your family and your loved ones, and how much more life force you're going to get to reignite back into like doing things you love for the sake of doing them rather than just getting stuck in business. Like, oh my gosh, the potential is endless. So I know I went a little riff-raff rant here, but once you begin to unsubscribe from these myths, you're in for a impeccably amazing adventure of this lifetime. So thank you for being here this week. I look forward to seeing you next week. And in the meantime, have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye for now. If you're enjoying this episode, you will love my free newsletter, Flourish Weekly. It is an email that you actually want to read, and you will be the first to hear about new offerings, events, and upcoming episodes of Resonance. The link will be in the show notes below, and you can also sign up through my website, ViktoriaLevenberg.com, or by heading to the link in my bio on Instagram at Viktoria Levenberg. The views and opinions expressed by guests on Resonance are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of me, Viktoria Levenberg, Live in Health, or anyone working within the Live in Health brand. This space welcomes a diversity of ideas, experiences, and stories, and part of Resonance is learning to take what aligns and gently leaving the rest. Also, while I am a national board-certified health and wellness coach and deeply passionate about well-being, this podcast is intended for educational and inspirational purposes only. Resonance does not substitute personalized medical, psychological, or therapeutic advice. Always seek guidance from qualified professionals for any physical, emotional, or mental health concerns.